Conversations Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 4 of the Conversations Podcast. I hope you all had a good break, and I wish you all the best for 2023, professionally and personally. Now, before I introduce my guest today, I'd like to say a few words about the devastating earthquakes that have hit both Turkey and Syria. As you would know by now, Turkey and Syria have been hit by two major earthquakes within the same day. And on behalf of the All Graduates family, I'd like to extend my heartfelt sympathies and condolences to all those affected by this disaster. We hope that those affected find comfort and strength in these very, very difficult times. Now, as you would appreciate, it will be a very, very long road to recovery for millions of people. The earthquake has affected about 20 million people. Now, with tens of thousands of dead and hundreds of thousands left homeless in the middle of a very harsh winter, temperatures dropping down way below zero, recorded as about minus 15 the other day in one province. It's going to be a very, very harsh winter, going to make it very difficult for the recovery. And those affected are going to need our support any which way we can give it to them. So if you would like to donate, please see below in the episode description. I've put some official organisations there that are set up to take international donations. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to introduce you to my first guest for 2023. Very fresh, newly elected AUSIT National President, Angelo Berbotto. Angelo, how are you?
Hi Fatih, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you very much for joining me today. I had the privilege of meeting you at the AUSIT National Conference last year in Brisbane, and I have to say, I keep saying it, I've said it so many times already, what an amazing event it was and how good it was to meet you there.
Thank you, Fatih. Yes, it was a great conference, and I think people were really looking forward to seeing people face to face. It was a success, and I pay tribute to all the volunteers who made it possible.
All the volunteers, the organising committee, just an amazing show. So I think we're in Sydney. We'll talk a little bit more about it. We're in Sydney this year.
Yeah,
your hometown.
That's right. And my adopted hometown.
Your adopted hometown. But we'll see if they can live up to the high standards that the Brisbane committee so amazingly showed. Yeah, and I'm sure they would. All right, look. When I met you first, I think we first hooked up on LinkedIn, and then I met you in person at the national conference. I was like, who was this Angelo guy that just came into the scene? Well, for me, it was out of nowhere. I know that you were here many years ago before you did your whole trip to London and then came back. But I was like, who is this guy? They're talking about this Angelo guy. He's like, yeah, he's up for the presidency. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know who this person is. And then I met you. And I was like, oh, now I understand why. Just this lovely, lovely guy. Look, I got to know you a little bit in the last few months, but I just want to first introduce you to our viewers and listeners. Who is Angelo Berbotto, and what does that J stand for?
Oh, okay. So it's a very sad story because my first name was given to my older brother who died. So I don't like using that name. So I'd rather not answer that question.
Okay, I'm sorry. I put my foot in it straight away on the first question there.
No, I never liked it for that reason and for other reasons. So I was born in Uruguay many years ago. I started university, but just before I finished, I came to Australia, and I did my law degree here, and I started working here as a lawyer. my first encounter with the world of translation and languages was in 1999 in preparation for the Sydney Olympics. Because, and that's when I met Sandra Hale, Margot Seligman, Felicity Mueller, because they were, Ludmila Stern as well, because they were all in the organization that was training the volunteer language specialists. And I went there. I remember that Sandra was one of those people choosing if one had the skills to actually do the course. And at the end of the course, if you had to sit the paraprofessional exam. That was my introduction to the world of translation and interpreting. I mean, I always liked it. I was pretty fluent in English by the age of 14, 15. And I learned other languages back home. But yeah, when I was here in Australia doing a law degree, I wasn't at that point thinking about a future career as a linguist. But that experience, so I passed the course. I became a paraprofessional interpreter, although I never used it. And it was a great experience.
So you were interpreting for all the Spanish-speaking?
Not all. Not all. I did that for 2 weeks, and I was interpreting for the sports people in sports that are not that popular in Latin America. I mean, handball. I mean, the Spanish team was quite strong, but I remember handball, female basketball. What else? I don't know. I think badminton.
Badminton, yeah.
And badminton is not a popular sport. I mean, I don't know. And of course, we were there just to assist and to help. But when what I remember is that when the journalist approached the losing team, and the losing team was a Spanish-speaking team, the players didn't want to speak to the journalist. And so I feel a little bit useless in that situation.
Angelo, we can speak for hours and we would not even touch the surface of everything that you've done. And you have so many talents. Like we said, you said that you're a translator. You had a brief stint at interpreting at the Olympics, even though...
I was a volunteer. I wasn't one of those professional interpreters. No, I was a volunteer, but it was a great experience. Yeah,
it would have been amazing. Yeah. And you're also a polyglot. How many languages do you speak?
Well, it depends. I've studied 9 languages, but I don't speak them all in fluently. I would say I can speak 4 fluently. Like I can work in those 4 languages in my legal work.
And they're French, Spanish,
and Italian. And English. Portuguese is passive language. I read Portuguese. I don't speak it very well, or I feel embarrassed when I speak Portuguese. I have B1 in German and in Polish. I started learning Greek when I was 16, so καταλαβαίνω λίγο ελληνικά. The things is I have a good
memory.
Πολύ ωραία. I was blessed with very good memory, and that's what has helped me in my law studies, because I thought, okay, English is my second language. I had lots of self-doubt, but actually I can retain a lot of information. So yeah, Greek, Polish, German, and I'm learning Indonesian.
Magnificent. And then I'll teach you some Turkish, and then you can say 10.
Yeah, well, I looked into Turkish, but I'm a bit afraid of the agglutinative feature of Turkish. So I want to learn, and Turkish is not Indo-European either, is it?
No,
No.
it's from the Ural Altais.
Yeah. Perhaps one day I want.
I think I'll teach you some good Turkish words, not the bad ones, and then we'll take it from there.
I like the fact that it uses the Latin script, but I started Indonesian last year just because I thought, okay, I have no idea about any Asian language, and the ones with tonal languages like Mandarin or Thai. I thought it's going to take me a long time. So I thought, Indonesia is the closest country to Australia, and Malaysian is similar. So I thought, okay, I give it a go, and I like it. The sound system, when your first language is Spanish, the sound system of Indonesian is not that different. It's not like English and Spanish, which is quite different.
Yeah. And it's just up north, so you can go and visit as often as you like.
Yeah, that's right. And hopefully we won't go in there.
You're closer than we are. So than I am in Melbourne.
I am in Sydney, yeah.
Now, you came from Uruguay, you studied law in Australia, you did some amazing volunteering at the Olympics. Unfortunately, the Spanish team lost and they didn't want to speak, so couldn't really put that to use. But having said that, now, there was a time when you went back to London, and then I was looking at your resume. You're Attorney General for a couple of years at the islands. You can tell me more about that. So what happened? Again, we've got a lot to speak about. We'll get to AUSIT and what you want to do there, but you've got some amazing history there as well. You went back to England, and then what happened?
I didn't go back.
Not back. You went to England.
I went to England for the first time. So what happened is that when I came to Australia, my family migrated to the Canary Islands. One good thing that I got from my ancestors was that they never became Uruguayan, so they retained their Italian citizenship and they passed it on. So when my father and my mother retired, they decided, okay, we have an Italian passport. What are we going to do with that? And they decided to go, and they had a friend in Tenerife, in the Canary Islands, so they moved there. And I was here in 2005, feeling a little bit homesick, but having an Australian legal qualification. So I thought, perhaps I can go to London. I've been to London once before. And so I arrived in London a week before the London bombings in 2005. And that freaks me out. I was in Liverpool Street the day before. I went to an interview there the day before Liverpool Street was blown up.
Wow.
That was my arrival to London. But
that was your welcome to the country.
Yeah. So I started working there. The first 2 years were really different. I mean, I thought I overestimated my capacity to adapt, because for me, the transition from Uruguay to Australia was very smooth. I think now, looking back, the weather has a big influence on me, and I didn't realize that. Because, Montevideo and Sydney are on the same latitude.
Yeah.
And also, Australians are very welcoming.
The Southern Hemispherians are just cooler, aren't they?
I think so. So I had made really good friends at university, but I was homesick. So I went there and I tried. When I was a student here, I did an exchange. So I lived in France as part of my studies. Although I was studying in Australia, I went to France, and I always wanted to live in Europe. So I went there with my law degree. I was admitted already. I started working there. Eventually, I did the exams to qualify as an English solicitor. But the first 2 years when I was doing a commercial law were, it was crazy. I would arrive at the office at 9:30, and I would leave the office at 9 or 9:30 in the evening. And
That's a long day.
Yes, they gave you, there was a restaurant, well, 2 restaurants inside the law firm. I mean, this law firm was a huge block. And the partners made a lot of money, but it wasn't the type. After a couple of months there, I realized that this isn't for me. So about a year and a half after I arrived in London, I applied for a scholarship to Italy. And I did a master's in children's law in Rome. And that is what set my path into child protection. I was, funnily enough, that was the first type of job that I had here in Australia before I left. It was at the Crown Solicitor's Office, which is like the solicitor for the government departments. And in other places, they call it Crown Law. And I was helping with cases that had to do with appeals to the children's court. And I always found that area interesting. So I did that master's in Rome. That was the entire 2007. And I went back to England. And I did another year of commercial law, just because it wasn't that easy. It's not that easy to change areas. In the common law jurisdictions, Australia, United Kingdom, once you start doing something, that's it. If you start doing family law or if you start doing criminal law, it is very hard to change. So it took me a while, but eventually I got I wrote a lot of letters, and finally this was the London Borough of Bromley in 2008-9. I sent a letter saying I'll come and work for you for free for 1 week, and because I knew that if I showed them what I was able to do, they would offer me a job, and they did.
Of course they did.
Yeah. And it was great. From then on, I just started getting more and more experience, and then I became a solicitor advocate. That is a solicitor who does not just prepare the case, but also presents the case in court.
What we call a barrister here, right? So.
No, it's still a solicitor. There are barristers. But it's a solicitor that also presents a case. Yeah, that does what a barrister does. But to distinguish that
does the whole work, does everything from start to scratch.
Yeah,
does the preparations, does the litigation.
It was very draining. It was very draining, and I loved it at the beginning, especially when the outcome for the children were, better. I mean, nobody likes taking a child from their family, but when that family is not looking after the child, it's harming, because the stake and the law is very similar in Australia and in the UK. Well, in the UK, in England and Wales, because, the UK has a very complex legal system, where you have Scotland with a different legal system, completely different, Northern Ireland also. So I am a solicitor admitted to practice in New South Wales and in England and Wales.
if I moved to Edinburgh or Glasgow, I would have to, and I wanted to work as a solicitor, I would have to requalify there. But yeah, that's not in my plans.
Well, we'll see everything else that you've done. Sorry, I'm just going to cut it there. Is your WhatsApp opened on the web browser?
Oh yes. Should I close it?
Yes, please. It dings.
Oh, WhatsApp, and then yeah. Sorry.
All right, awesome. Angelo, I'm just looking at your CV here. You've got so many master's degrees, so many certificates here. Another one that stands out for me is Masters in Parliamentary Law, Elections, Legislative Studies. Now, we also know that you've done some work as a legislative drafter.
Yeah.
Tell me briefly, what does that entail? You write the laws that we are governed by? What's happening there?
So I think that before I tell you that, I have to go to St Helena to explain why I got into there.
Yes, St Helena is another one I want to touch on as well.
Let's do the logical order.
Okay.
Order is St Helena first. So in 2000, I was doing this child protection work and I worked for different home counties, like local authorities in London. And in 2014, I see this ad in the Law Gazette. That's a publication for solicitors in England, saying that they need a child protection expert for the British Overseas Territory of St Helena. And I thought, British Overseas Territory of St Helena? I mean, I knew about Falkland Islands / Malvinas and Gibraltar, but I didn't know St Helena. So I thought I've heard that name somewhere.
Yeah, I had to look it up.
Yeah. So I Googled it, and I realized that is where Napoleon spent his last days. So I thought, oh, this sounds exciting. So I put in an application. I got the interview was from St Helena. I was like video link. And on the 1st of July, 2015, I went to St Helena. I flew to Cape Town in South Africa, and from there it was 5 days by ship to Jamestown in St Helena, which is the only town. The island has about 3,000 people. It was an amazing story.
What an adventure.
Yeah, it was. It was great. I met great people. And so when I was there, 6 months into my job, and I was doing child protection because there were some concerns about safeguarding. And about 6 months into the job, my boss went on holidays and never came back. And we were 3 lawyers in the government of St Helena, and I was the most senior. So I became the acting attorney general, and I did that for 4 months.
Wow.
And
so your boss goes on a holiday and never comes back, and then you end up being the attorney general.
Yeah. Well, somebody has to do the job, and the governor, the governor is the representative of the Queen, same as here. But in those British Overseas Territories, the governor has more political powers as well. And he asked me, okay, now you're the acting attorney general. So I started researching. I would spend my weekends in the office. It was tough, but it was at the same time a challenge. And so 4 months after, when they put the ad out saying, looking for an attorney general, I put in an application because I had been doing the job, and I had to go through the actual interview process and give examples. And there was also somebody from the Ministry of the Foreign Office, the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, the UK's Department of Foreign Affairs representative there. So it was a legitimate process, and they gave me the job, and they appointed me for 2 years. They offered me to renew, but it's very intense living in a small island as an expat, because you are on display all the time. You have people are always watching you, and
you're the star of the show. Wherever you go, everyone knows you.
Well, and everybody has a complaint to.
Ah, yes, of course.
Because people sometimes don't understand how things work, and they assume that just because you are the number 3 in the government, because that was my post, I was number 3, that I could do things for them, but of course I couldn't, and I had to be impartial all the time. So after that position, I took a sabbatical, and I got a.
You went to Poland, right?
Yes, my partner at the time was Polish, and that's why we ended up in Poland. And so we went to Poland, and I was doing these 2 masters, one in Madrid and the other one in London. The one in London I started when I was already in St Helena, because I thought, this is a very interesting area of law about legislation, advising the MPs, because as Attorney General, my role was primarily to work with the legislative drafter and get instructions from the politicians to amend the laws or to bring new laws. For example, the new laws that we had for there were about food safety. But the amendment of the laws happen all the time. The immigration ordinance, the word for act over there is ordinance. And, a British overseas territory is an independent country for all purposes except for foreign relations and for defense. So St Helena only applied the laws of England when those laws had a direct impact, but we didn't use the Crimes Act of England. We used the Crimes Ordinance of St Helena, so that there was local law. And because for 2 years I did that, and to the best of my ability, but without any proper training, and I am somebody who is very respectful of knowledge and the theoretical framework. So I thought, okay, I need education on this so that I can apply for similar jobs. And so I was doing those 2 masters at the same time and learning Polish. Well, I started learning Polish when I was in 2012. That's when I started, because that's a funny story in itself. Because I was living in Elephant and Castle in London, and one day there was a new shop, a corner shop, but didn't say shop, said sklep. And I thought, what is that? And when I went in to have a look, everything was there were all consonants on the
Someone forgot to put all the vowels in here. What's going on?
What happened? What is this? And this is now... And now I understand why, because, I arrived in London in 2005, and Poland joined the EU in 2004, and that's when more Polish migrants started arriving. And, of course, and it was great. I like learning languages because it's like a window into a different world. And so, in 2012, I started learning Polish in Piccadilly. There was a school called Paul Word, and most of the people learning Polish had Polish partners. So I was the only one without one, and then I found one.
Then you had to get one, huh? Did you find your Polish partner in the course?
No.
All right. Well,
no. So I lived in Wrocław in the western part of Poland that once upon a time was part of Germany. And it's only 3 hours from Berlin. And it's a beautiful place. I mean, it's a beautiful
weekends in Berlin.
Well, some weekends in Berlin, yeah. But Poland's a beautiful country that not many people know, and that's why it's so special, because it's not like doesn't have mass tourism.
Yeah, I hear Krakow has a beautiful art scene, for example.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So,
well,
because of that reason, I went to do those studies, and when St Helena had a similar climate to Sydney, what I remember. So we have to big bracket 2020 and 2021. The weather here has been very strange, but St Helena weather was all sunny winters, and I thought, and the idea of going back to England and having a cloud parked just on top of you all the time.
Just follows you around, yeah?
Well, I mean, it's not the cold, because that doesn't bother me. It is the lack of light that bothers me. So we decided to come back to Australia, and I got a job as a legislative drafter. So to answer your question, yes, a legislative drafter is a lawyer who specializes in writing the legislation. We get the instructions from the government department, and or from the MP. If the MP is in the opposition, for example, from the MP, that's called a private member's bill. And we take those instructions, the policy, and translate it into the language of the law. Because remember, the law has to fit in with other laws.
Mm.
So any new act of parliament or any new regulation has to fit in with whatever there is already in the corpus, in the legislation corpus, because it has to be coherent. The entire thing it's a very technical job.
Yeah, and then if you don't make it fit, then you have to change everything else, and then change everything else around that. It's got to be so hard to make it so that it fits in there.
One of the principles of the law is certainty, and another one is clarity. So it is a good thing that politicians don't do this job, that they get lawyers to do it.
Well, they look like they do everything, but there's this massive team of obviously people like yourself doing all the hard work, because it's pretty easy, I guess, putting a policy on a pamphlet, but then turning that into actual legislation. That one point that they're saying we're going to do this, and then turning it into actual legislation that works. It's got to be so hard.
Well, yes, and it involves, it's a huge intellectual exercise into seeing if you change something in this building, will it affect something else, and how? It was very interesting. I did that at Queensland government for 2 years, and in the middle of that, COVID happened, and I had some losses in my life, and I started having a bit of a crisis, of a career crisis, and that's when I decided, okay, I have all these languages in my head. Why don't
and you haven't done a master's for a couple of years at least, so I'll do another master's, he says.
Oh, well, yes. So in the middle, what got me thinking one day, I remember about my experiences when I was a volunteer at the Olympic Games. So I decided to Google Sandra Hale, because I remember her name.
She's also very Googleable. There's a lot that comes up when you Google search her.
I found out that she was at the university, and I sent her an email, and I said to her, I'm sure you won't remember me, but you taught those modules in the training. Anyways, this was October 2020, I think.
Knowing her, she probably did remember you.
No, yeah. So I enrolled at the Masters in the University of New South Wales, Masters of Translating and Interpreting, and I'm still doing it because it's a bit of a turtle pace, but so that's what got me thinking. Okay, perhaps I can have a break from the law, get stronger again, because many things happened in my personal life here in Australia. So I was feeling at a point where I just needed a change, and I didn't want to deal with clients I don't know, clients in the world of translating are much more reasonable than clients in the legal world. And I just need a break from the hassle. So I started work. I changed the name of my business because as I said, I've always been working as a translator, like part-time or doing some stuff. There's one translator who lives in country New South Wales, Susanna, and we've been working together since 2005. Either mostly me as proofreader of her translations, or sometimes the other way around. But these translations would be, I don't know, one every 2 or 3 weeks. Excuse me. So I've been. It's not like I only started translating 2 years ago. No, I've been doing stuff, but more as something to pay from going out rather than being my sole source of income. And I was happy doing my legal career at the time. Well, I was tired, but I was sort of happy. And so it was around 2020 that I started thinking, okay, perhaps I need a break, and I need to explore this, and I need to put my languages to work. And that's when, in 2021, 22, I started thinking, okay, I need to pass these exams, and I did the certification for my stronger, my B and C languages, and and by this time I was, working with Sandra, with Ludmila, meeting other academics, and Sandra said, they need somebody. And also the other thing is that I transitioned when I arrived in Australia. I transitioned into the certification, and I joined AUSIT because I had been a member of AUSIT in 2004. I think Evelyn Pillier was the president at the time I left, or I remember her anyway from those days. And I remember the old forum when people could put questions and stuff, the Yahoo groups. But then when I went to England, I didn't renew, and but I knew about AUSIT. So I came back, and I started meeting people who are not lawyers, who are translators and interpreters. They're nice people, interesting people.
So much more interesting than lawyers, maybe, huh?
Well, that sometimes, I just needed a change.
Well, we welcome you with open arms into our profession. Thank you so much for coming in. A little bit later, perhaps, but bringing all that amazing experience with you. And now, as our freshly appointed AUSIT National President, and we know a little bit about your past now and everything that you can bring. And in what you said, 21, 22, in a couple of years, you've gone from becoming a full-time translator to then going, I haven't been an AUSIT member for a long time. There were forums and everything. I remember a little bit about it. Now I'm the president. How does that happen? Who lobbied you? Who came to? Because our immediate past president, Erica Gonzalez, has been on our podcasts more than a few times, and she's my teacher from RMIT as well, one of my mentors, and I love her dearly. So hello to Erica. And I think she did it for 3 terms.
Yeah, that's a limit. That's the thing.
That's the limit.
Otherwise, I think you could still be talking to Erica today.
Perhaps. But so she came to the end of her terms. How did they recruit you? Who came to you and was like, oh, okay, Angelo, by the way, why don't you just become an AUSIT National President, because you've just been doing this for a couple of years?
So as I said, Sandra told me in 2020, I think, or 2021, about that the ethics committee, AUSIT has a number of committees, and one is the ethics and professional practice committee, that they had a vacancy and whether I wanted to volunteer on the committee. And I said, yeah, sure. And I started working with Saeed and Jim, Miranda, Jackie, lots of great colleagues. Their work is why we have now the affiliates, the industry affiliates document. That is a committee that works a lot and very effectively. So I pay tribute to them. And then a couple of people that I don't have their permission to disclose their names, so I won't, but they said, Angelo, have you thought about being the next president? And these are people that I trust and that I have a lot of respect for. I asked them some time to think about it, because I knew. So I'm very careful about the what I put my name for, because I can't do things halfway through. Either I do them or I don't.
No half measures, all or nothing.
Well, I mean, I don't like mediocrity. Half measures is mediocrity.
Correct.
So, yes, I can fail because I don't have the talent, or I don't, or I'm not the right person. But I'm not going to fail because I don't try. So I knew that this position came with a lot of, time, effort. What is it? Sweat, tears, pain.
Yeah.
But also a lot of satisfaction and the potential of making changes that will help this industry. Now, yeah, some people may say, well, you've just been around for 2 years. What can you bring to AUSIT? And say, well, I think that may be an advantage, because if you're looking to your navel all the time and you're not looking out and what is happening in other organizations, that is equally a disadvantage. I have had position of leadership, Attorney General, also team leader in the local authorities I work for. And I've been a volunteer was secretary of an international organization in Europe for 7 years. But mostly I'm inspired by how the Law Society works. That is a professional organization. And things work in a very different way. Lawyers talk to each other. I don't understand why I don't understand why interpreters and translators operate as if they were the only ones on earth, rather than talking to their colleagues. Yeah, I understand. If you also translate Spanish, we are going to be business rivals. But at the same time, we have much to gain by talking to each other. So translators are rivals. But when it comes to protecting their interest, they work together.
Definitely. Look, I agree with you there, but I also think that because it's such a solitary profession, it's very rarely you have practitioners working together on the same project, or going to work and seeing another bunch of interpreters or another bunch of translators. Mostly we're either at home or in our cars or in an office corner somewhere. It's it's hard to bring us all together and feel like we're a part of something bigger. So I think that's where your challenge is. Like, how are you going to unite us? How are you going to make sure that we believe that we are a part of a social, coherent profession that is linked to each other? Yes, of course, there is competition. Don't even worry about that. But we can't even get into the same room as each other most of the times because we don't even know each other. We're just names and numbers on the Nati directory, you know?
That is one thing that I would like to change, and change for good, because I think that there are players in this industry that take advantage of that situation. LSPs, that some do not act in the best interest of interpreters and translators, and they exploit the fact that people don't talk to each other to offer rates that in some cases you can describe as miserable. So, and I understand that things may have been, there has been this isolation or whatever you want to call it, but that doesn't mean that it should continue. Some people have told me, Angelo, this is what has been happening for years. And my answer is yes, but that doesn't mean that that's the right way and that should continue.
So like, we're going to shake it up a bit, yeah?
Well, if we don't change the way we do things, things will continue the same way.
And I think we've been complaining about the same things for a while now, right?
I mean, I find it very frustrating when people complain and they do nothing to change things. And that's why I'm saying, if you or anybody else has an idea for AUSIT, if you have an idea to improve the industry generally, come join AUSIT and join a committee, because we welcome anybody with open arms, people who want to work, not who want to complain. We don't need complainers. We need doers.
We already have complainers, and we're going to have complainers. Complainers are check. Do we have complainers? Yes, that's fine. We'll always have plenty of them.
Recently, and I believe that there is strength in unity, and that's why we have to grow as an association. At the moment we represent numerically about 1/5 of everybody, of all people who have credentials as translators or interpreters in Australia. So we need to grow. We should be in a position where we represent at least half of the translators and interpreters, because otherwise our opinion is not going to be authoritative. Because can we say we represent the profession? Well, nominally, yes. Numerically, no. Because everybody's doing their own little thing. And that's why I said in my last newsletter, enough of prima donnas. You know, a prima donna is a soprano usually in opera who has the main role and who is there center stage getting all the applause. We have to be more like a chorus, you know. We have to be more like a choir.
Mind you, the prima donna usually ends up dying at the end of the opera too, so be careful the prima donnas out there. Yeah?
Well, I don't wish anybody an early death, but what I'm saying is that we need to change our mindset. And that's what, in my view, we need to act more like a choir, act in harmony, read from the same page, from the same score. This is an issue with the recommended national standards. I mean, and this is one of the topics I'll be talking about when I come to Melbourne next week on the 17th.
You're coming this week, I'll remind you.
This week, 17th of February and 18th of February. Because I have worked with interpreters being a lawyer in England, and I was appalled at how the voice of my client was being distorted by poor interpreting. So I can understand when lawyers complain, or because if they see one bad interpreter, human nature is that they will generalize and paint the entire population of interpreters with the same brush. So that's why I'm saying we need to act in harmony together, doing the same thing. Interpreters in court, they have to do the same thing, apply the recommended national standards. Yes, they're not perfect, but it's better than what there was before. We have to present in a homogeneous way in order to command the respect as professionals that we so much crave. But it's not going to be granted to us just by magic. We have to earn it. But the problem is that the performance of interpreters in court, and this issue also touches translators, but in a different way. The thing is that there's such much disparity that people who are highly prepared and qualified and do an absolute wonderful job, the other people who perhaps didn't have the opportunities for training because they work in an emerging language, but there are the others. They're the ones who don't care, and those are the ones who are damaging because they don't feel inspired, they don't want to improve, they don't. That is where I think we have the biggest stumbling block, not in the ones who didn't have the chances, because those will put whatever, they have the will to learn. Mm-hmm. And learning, we never stop learning, but the desire to improve yourself, that has to come from within. You don't learn that in a course. And that's what I'm saying. Of course, there is going to be suspicion in a solicitor who, when the interpreter comes and says, "Oh, can I have the document?" Well, of course, they're going to be that lawyer is going to be suspicious if, in the past, the interpreters that they dealt with never asked for that, or where the practice was a little bit questionable. Yeah. Well, so that's what I'm saying. At the moment, we, well, I'm not an interpreter yet. I don't know if one day I'll be, but I am really interested in this convergence of these two worlds of interpreting and the law, because people say, "Oh, well, it's a bad interpreter, but it's better than nothing." And I say, no, you're wrong. It's better for a person not to have an interpreter than the message, the voice of the client being distorted by an incompetent interpreter. And I say this again, it is better off a non-English speaking person that is dealing with the court not to have an interpreter than to have a bad interpreter. But I recognize that technical issues like learning, improving, that is possible, but only if the person has the will. And that's correct. That's why I say to people, AUSIT is the place for you to improve. AUSIT.
Let's talk about AUSIT and the members and how you want to grow the numbers. Now, you said that currently membership about 1/5 of the entire practitioner population in Australia. And we know, look, there's a fee attached to it, okay? And we know that practitioners, interpreters, translators, they don't make a lot of money. They would probably look and calculate every single cent and dollar that they spend on their profession. What would be the advantages in addition to being united and being one voice, reading off the same choir music sheet, what is going to be the advantage, the value for money, let's say, of joining AUSIT? Because I know you have some plans for that too. Talk to me. What is the practitioner going to get when they join AUSIT?
Well, the PDs, so the continuous education program, is one of the things. We are making it. We're making it accessible. The old courses that we have, old courses, not that old, but we're making it free access. The ones that are earlier to 2020 in our multimedia kiosk.
Mm-hmm.
We are for students. We are now going through the changes to the bylaws so that somebody who is now doing a skills course at TAFE, for example, could apply to become a student member of AUSIT at a reduced rate. So I think they pay 1/3 of the ordinary member. And if you are already a practitioner and you enroll in a master's or in a diploma, you can also you can be an ordinary member approved training, and that means that you pay less. But our membership is not that expensive. I mean,
I've got to be the devil's advocate here. You know, for you it might not be expensive, but for someone who doesn't get a lot of work for a language that is not a tier 1 language, you know, it might be effective. It might affect their budget at the end of the day. That's what I'm saying.
It is tax deductible, Fatih. It is
that's okay. Yeah, I understand that. But I'm trying to say, be an AUSIT member. This is what you're going to get.
All right. So for the Education Committee is launching the mentorship program in March, April. So it is possible to pair a practitioner who wants mentoring with an experienced mentor. We have the opportunity for people also to work in our committees, and people think, oh, it's my time but you get a lot just from working in these committees. You get new skills, you get to think in a different way, develop skills that may not have to do with your actual interpreting or translating, but are business skills. So what else do I want to do? What other services? Well, one of the things I'd like to do is to start advertising advertising our services, like as AUSIT, for example, in the law journals of the different law societies. You know, each law society in each state has a publication. And for that reason, I want to expand the directory of AUSIT so that AUSIT members can put more details about themselves, their qualifications, their experience. I mean, I have nothing against agencies, but it is in other industries, people go to the practitioner directly, whether it is that you need a solicitor or a psychologist. So why shouldn't we try to help the market out there contact our members directly rather than through an LSP? So
Would you ever consider, for example, just an idea came to my mind here, that because you have different language tiers and it depends on the language, whether you get a lot of work or, your rates are different if you are a CI as opposed to a CPI, for example, and the CPIs make considerably less, and sometimes CI doesn't even exist in these languages, right? They can't even go to the CI because as the highest they can go would be a CPI, all right? So they're always going to have this ceiling put over their head when it comes to their earnings. Would you even consider maybe having different membership fees for, that's a little bit lower for languages that are capped at CPI or that might not be as busy as other languages if we want to get more and potentially everyone into AUSIT?
That's something that I would be open to discussing with the National Council. But at the end of the day, I don't think this is about money. I think that people are waiting to see what others can do for you. This is about the larger culture we live in, where many other institutions are losing their volunteers and people are not participating as much as they did in the past. Joining AUSIT is saying to the world that you care about your professional development, that you want to be respected as a professional, that you are committed to your improvement, to improving your skills. So it is a statement. Becoming a member of this association is a statement. Some people don't understand it like that, and I don't know if I can. I'm going to share this with you because I understand that there is a lot of pain, a lot of disappointment out there. I got an email from an anonymous person saying that a message I had sent was shameless. What I said in that newsletter, I think it was December, I said, I tell you this, soon the time will come when clients will ask if you, translator or interpreter, are an AUSIT member before they decide to go for your services. These are my words. This will happen gradually as we educate clients about the fact that practitioners who've joined their national association are practitioners who care, who take their profession seriously, who seek ways to deliver the best product they can. And this person said that they found this message that personally, I'm going to quote this anonymous person, personally, I think it is outrageous. We are already paid less due to market competition and cutting prices to win clients, and our jobs are less than casual, unstable income, mostly suitable for students or family caretakers who can make some pocket money. Yet, on top of NAATI, who already charges us every 3 years, AUSIT want to charge us yearly or threaten us with loss of work and income? We already make less money than call center workers. Do you see any organization out there saying no company should hire customer service staff unless they pay a membership fee annually? You see how outrageous this is? I understand there might have been a time in the past when language workers were paid well, not anymore. I will personally seek other jobs as soon as I complete my own other commitments in life that make it difficult to work regular shifts. Sending this in anonymously. So there's a lot of pain in that message. Anonymous, if you are listening to this, I don't judge you. I recognize the pain, I recognize the disappointment, but doesn't change the fact that I personally, when I go and talk to lawyers, and that is my focus group because that is what I know. And a president will come next year, the year after, who works great with health practitioners, and they will just focus on that. But I am not going to cover everything, because a master, what is it? A jack of all trades and a master of none. So I can, in the limited time I have to be intelligent and strategic. So, but what I'm saying is, when I go to talking to lawyers, and my roadshow that I'm taking now to Victoria, to Tasmania, and then to South Australia, and then I will go to all the law societies of the country if they invite me. I'm talking to lawyers and saying, you have to ask questions. When you choose an expert witness, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, any type of a rheumatologist, depending on the case, for your client, you check the qualifications. You go for the best possible person. Why don't you do that for the linguist? The linguist is the voice of your client in court. What's going on here? Many lawyers don't understand how interpreters work. So I am educating them, like most interpreters educate when they have to explain why they need.
It's a daily thing. It's
exactly,
a daily thing.
Yeah. Exactly. What I'm saying, but I am sure that all this work will pay off, and the profile of AUSIT will be higher. And I do think that being a member of AUSIT is a bit of a seal of quality. I'm not saying that all the AUSIT members are perfect, or that we don't have people who could do a better job. Sometimes they disappoint. I'm not saying that. But there is this communication, this getting to know other practitioners, sort of helps by osmosis. In a way, people are aware of what the issues are. There is more information flowing. Some practitioners who are not members of AUSIT are still talking about level 3. I'm a level 3. What is that? You're in prehistory. Are you a dinosaur? And they're talking to the client, and they're doing the same thing in court as they were doing in the 1990s. And that's why I'm saying, if we want to change, if we want to be respected, if we want to gain that prestige that other professionals have, well, we have to act in a consistent way. And that's what is lacking. One day, the judge has a wonderful interpreter who does everything by the book, and the following day, the interpreter who is assisting in another case is just doing things the way they think.
Yeah. Look, I understand where you're coming from within regards to that, I think, but we also need to acknowledge the fact that not all languages have the same level of education or have access to the same level of education as other interpreters would do.
And precisely,
but I think we need to bring that to the same level as well.
And precisely because of that, AUSIT is the right place. Precisely because of that, because if in your language pair there aren't many opportunities, well, this is the way, this is the place where you can meet with other people, and you can, that information or academic knowledge can trickle. You see, and that is why I find it so frustrating when people say, no, I don't need it. I've heard that. What does it do for me? I don't think that those are intelligent way of thinking. I respect people's opinion, but it is in unity, it is in involvement. And we have to recognize something. Every 5 years, when you get the census, you get a different changes in the population composition, in the immigrant composition of Australia. For some people who are excellent linguists, the work dries up because the population they are helping is not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it is unless you work with in an international market, you are also you depend on those fluctuations. So we have to be aware of that.
We were talking about a seal of quality before, and I know you've got this great big idea about bringing that seal of quality to LSPs and other affiliates as well. Do you want to tell me a little bit about the industry affiliate plans that you have? And I know there's currently a questionnaire survey going around within regard to that. There's going to be talks about introducing an industry affiliate membership potentially to LSPs. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
It's not a membership. So we will be. That is why they're called affiliate. So LSPs won't be able to vote, but it will be sort of a formal relationship with LSPs. LSPs are they have a lot of power in the translation and interpreting industry. There is a bit of strange situation here because they can't survive without us, but some don't treat us with respect.
Mm-hmm.
And the industry affiliate, what it's going to do is will differentiate those affiliates, those LSPs who have said, okay, we're going to put you linguist, you interpreter, or you translator, we're going to put you first. And the way of doing it is by complying with these standards that the industry affiliate documents contain. So we launched that, and as I said before, this is the work of the Ethics and Professional Practice Committee.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's something that is potentially is going to have a big impact potentially in this industry, we wanted to have a consultation period. And that consultation finishes on the 15th of March. So people who are listening, you don't have to be an LSP to send your comments to respond to this consultation. And if you haven't seen the documents, write an email to admin@ausit.org and say, I would like to see the documents for consultation on the industry, affiliate. After the 15th of March, we won't accept it. So do it now. We want to listen. We want people to engage with those texts and provide their ideas, what they think. So far, only a couple of LSPs have responded. It raises the standard. Not all LSPs will be able to comply with it, as it is at the moment. We'll see whether it undergoes a substantial transformation after the consultation. But it is very peculiar to me when I look at this with fresh eyes, because if you I would say the substantial chunk of business for LSPs comes from government agencies. Now, if you, Fatih, you are a translator for and you are employed by a state or federal government, you would be eligible to certain entitlements, to minimum hours, etc., etc. Now, government agencies, they don't hire translators, interpreters directly, so they use intermediaries, these agencies. But those protections, work protection, minimum hours, etc., don't trickle down to these Australian workers. And that is, to me, very perverse, because there is, at the moment, this is treated as any other procurement process. The getting a contract for a government department, the considerations are money only, as if translation and interpreting services were the same as buying toilet paper for an office building. And the problem is that many agencies are promising to those in those procurement exercises very low rates, so they get awarded those contracts. But then they don't save money because they have effective processes. They save money because they squeeze the life of the translators and interpreters. So those processes at the moment are rewarding exploitative practices. So I want to talk to those government departments as...
That's right. That's what I was going to say. I mean, yes, there are some LSPs out there who use this to their advantage. How are you going to change the approach of the government organisations who just want to go down to the cheapest?
Well, it's by influencing the checklist that they have when they award these contracts. Because if you introduce in that decision-making process considerations about the actual workforce that does the job, and you protect certain rights, then the differentiation between an LSP and the other will be on how efficient they are, not how exploitative they are. And at the moment, the system is quite perverse, because if you were hired directly by an agency, by a government agency, you will be in a better off position. So perhaps for me, this is so clear because I understand how government works from inside, being a legislative drafter. I don't know, but I want to influence on that, and I want to change it. So I know that there are the union is working on a different front. I haven't been completely briefed. I'm supportive of what they're doing. But this is a general exercise. We have to raise the status of the profession.
I believe there's industry awards talks going with the union and other organisations. So I think there are those talks. So it'll be interesting to see how you get involved with that too.
Yeah, and as I said, I want LSPs to continue working and making money, but I don't want them to prosper at the expense of poor conditions for myself and my colleagues. That's what
definitely.
That's not acceptable, because they are nothing without us. They're nothing. They cannot offer this. Yeah, they can go overseas and then try. Somebody who has never lived in Australia try to do a community translation. Good luck to them. They're going to have a big scandal, and just because we haven't seen a lot of litigation, I mean, that is one of my research areas. I'm actually going through the different lawsuits to agencies, and that is going. If I do a PhD, that will be the topic of my PhD. You know,
I don't think it's an if. I think that's a when for you.
People don't realize that there's a vast amount of material out there that is publicly available. Yeah, well, but I'll discuss that later. When I see you in Melbourne, that I'm going to reveal that in my lecture.
So I'm hoping to edit this and publish it before you come to Melbourne. So I'll probably do it on the Friday, which is actually when you're coming and delivering your lecture. But I'll do it on the morning of. So hopefully this will all make sense when everyone listens to it, and it's not too early, it's not too late. So we'll look forward to that. And I'll put links in the episode description about the 2 PD sessions that you're going to be presenting at, and hopefully there will still be some registration spots for that too by the time this episode hits the channels.
What I just wanted to say is that, I am not somebody, I don't consider myself a proud person. I am persuadable if I think that somebody's argument makes sense and that I have lacked information in my in my assessment of a situation. I am happy to be corrected, but I need to engage with those people. So that's when Anonymous wrote this to me, I could see the pain, I could see the disappointment. Do I agree with Anonymous' conclusion that, or assessment that my message is shameless? No. I can see why this person feels at the end of their tether, yes. But in order to change things, we have to change it together.
Together we stand, divided we fall, basically.
Well, I don't see any other way. And we cannot expect other people to do it for us. We can't. We can't trust others to do the job that we have to do ourselves.
And then we'll be complaining about what they did anyway.
Well, but that is secondary. The thing is that in your home, you are responsible of arranging things in your home, and these industries are home. It's not the LSP's home, it is the practitioner's home. And I want to modulate that dialogue as well, because at the moment it is the LSPs that are calling the shots, and I'm saying, not acceptable.
All right. Well, watch this space. We'll be in support of everything that you're doing too, as an LSP. Now, talk to me about the Sydney Conference 2023.
Yes.
We just had an amazing one in Brisbane, and I'd never been to Brisbane before, and I love the city, I love the people, I love the university there, and an amazing conference was had. So coming up in your adopted home ground, what's going to be the theme? Do we know, and what should we be looking forward to for the AUSIT National Conference in Sydney this year?
Well, it is very early days. Remember that the conference is usually in the last quarter of the year, so that's October, November, December.
But I just want to get excited about it from now.
Yeah, you can get excited, but what the information that is confirmed is very little at this stage.
Can you share that a little bit with us?
We are in negotiations with an educational affiliate. So you know that we went to University of Queensland because they are an education affiliate. In Sydney, there are at least 3 educational affiliates, and we are in discussions with them.
Yep, so you got UNSW, Macquarie, and Western Sydney Uni probably, right? So it might be one of those 3.
Those are 3 of our educational affiliates. At this stage, there are no venue has been confirmed. We are working towards, our goal is end of November, but that is not confirmed either. So at the moment, what you have is a lot of volunteers. I mean, we have a great committee led by two co-chairs, Cynthia Lee and Sylvia Martinez.
Hello, Cynthia. Hello, Sylvia.
They're doing a wonderful job. There have been, 4 or 5 meetings of the committee already. We also have the experience and input of the organizing committee for Queensland conference. So that's great. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. The wheel already exists. But we are in the early stages. Remember, we are 9 months away. So
time flies when you're having fun.
Absolutely. So I do think that there will be news the other side of Easter. And the moment I have them, I'll let you know, and we can have a chat, or you can invite Cynthia and Sylvia. Yeah.
I'll have you all on at the same time.
I'll
have a whole panel of you.
We'll do it in Spanish, and then you can get somebody to do
simultaneous interpreting.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds like a plan, and maybe I might polish up on my Spanish a little bit too. Now, I know that you wanted more volunteers working in the state committees, the branches.
Yes.
How do we get people there? Call to action. Like, if you want to volunteer and be in the AUSIT branch committee, what can you do?
If you are listening to this podcast and you feel identified by anything I have said, send me an email. president@ausit.org, because I want to hear from you. And I will.
Email is on your screen now. president@ausit.org.au.
And if you have a suggestion, recommendation, idea, I'll welcome you with open arms. But please don't expect me to develop your idea. I will ask you to be part of a committee to develop that idea, because I'm not Superman. So it is, as I've said again, it is each one of us doing a little bit that changes things. And we require this point in the 36, 37 years of AUSIT, we need that cultural change of the whole industry and those stakeholders like courts, lawyers that are working with us. Because it is time. It is time. So, yeah, I find a way for you to volunteer, to use your talents and to develop new talents and skills. Just send me an email.
So if I, for example, I'm with the Victorian branch, by the way, so I'm already on the committee.
Yes.
All right. And thank you very much for the branch for inviting me. It's amazing being part of that. But let's say I'm an interpreter translator, I'm an AUSIT member, and I want to do more for my institution. And I know that I have certain skills, so I can just contact you or the branch directly and say, look, I want to get involved. What can I do?
Well, if you contact me and I have a chat with you on the phone, and I'll find out a little bit. I mean, I love meeting members. I was in Hobart for work last week, and I got together with a wonderful translator, English into French, professional interpreter. We had breakfast together. I got to learn about her experience in Hobart, coming from France, and I just love interacting and getting to know, and also getting a glimpse of in what sort of world they work, because it is, the industry looks different if you are in Sydney or if you are in Melbourne, if you are in Hobart, in Tasmania. Mm-hmm. There are different players. There are different clients that interpreters and translators serve. So I'm very careful with assumptions. I don't like to assume that just because I see things in one way, that is what is actually happens. That's why I rely so much on research, and that's why I have so much respect for people like Sandra, Ludmila, Erica, Miranda, Jim, Mark, Adelis, Sydney, all those people all those academics who actually study what happens in different areas of the industry. Mustafa, so many.
We've got some amazing academics, even like compared to the rest of the world as well. We've got some very amazing active academics who are not just for Australia, but doing amazing research for globally for our industry.
Yes, and many practitioners don't know. They don't read those articles. They don't know. And so it's great to have something like this podcast. And I really would invite you, Fatih, to get in touch with the education committee of AUSIT and see what is the new research so that you can invite those researchers through this podcast. So
100%. I've had many researchers here, and I look forward to having more. So I'll definitely get in touch with the education committee and see what's happening. And I think we need to work on a way of disseminating all this research as well.
Yes. Yes.
You know, at the moment, they might be hidden away behind a university's website somewhere, but I think, you know, it'll be good to make them more accessible to members as well.
I mean, recently I participated in a PD event where people were talking about their experiences. But personal experiences, that's the domain of anecdotes. That's an art match. That is like, it is research that looks at trends, changes. Because your particular experience, Fatih, doing Turkish interpreting may not be representative of all the interpreting that happens in Victoria. So I don't like being critical, but I don't see a lot of value in PDs when people just talk about what they do, what the day is. No. I see value in methodical, systematic research that follows some ethical criteria and that is going to increase knowledge. And that's why, And I think that is the type of PDs, for example, that we are offering in AUSIT. So, I mean, as I said, we never stop learning, but learning we must, because otherwise our skills get rusty.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And things that were acceptable in 1992 are not the standard in 2023. So if we don't move and we don't acquire those skills, well, we're not doing what we should.
Well, you're also going to get left behind by people who are anyway.
Yeah. So that's one of the that is one of the things that I said to people. I have been blessed that I had the opportunity of doing this masters at UNSW. There are equally wonderful masters in other institutions, but I live 3 kilometers from UNSW, and that's why I decided to enroll there. But it opened my mind to so many things.
I agree with you. Same here.
I don't read a text the same way anymore. And you get ideas, and I mean, like the masterclass. I watched the podcast that you did with Christina, and I was smiling as you were talking about masterclass, and that
mean, very rarely you get PD in language, and then you had this amazing PD in language.
And that's one.
You want to do more of that, yeah? You want to do more language specific with other languages too?
Yes. That one of the things that I want to create, that we are discussing in the National Council, is I want to create a divisions committee, and that divisions like language divisions, language and occupational divisions. So in that is to give a little bit of structure to the practitioners that work in the same language group. So, at the moment we have at the Learn book, and I am aware that there are things with the Learn book that are not ideal, and we will look into that, hopefully get something better. But at the moment, that's what it is. That's what we have, and we need to use it. In the Learn book, there are fora, if I'm using the Latin correctly, the plural will be fora, for the different languages and different occupational groups like legal translators, health translators, etc. So all members of AUSIT have can log in to the Learn book. So one of the things I want to do is those language groups that want to be part of the divisions committee, they will need to choose a delegate and a deputy delegate, let's say for Spanish. All AUSIT members who work with Spanish can, let's have somebody who volunteers to be the deputy and the delegate and the deputy delegate for 1 year, and will help those two people to develop masterclass and also to be the focal point for that language. There may be things going on with Spanish that have nothing to do with other language groups. I don't know, could be a change that the Royal Academy of the Spanish Language changes the grammar rules again, not the grammar, the spelling. That happened in 2010. But we still see some practitioners who are using the old rules. They haven't been updated. I don't know. Let's suppose that there is another spelling reform in Spanish. And so there is a need for a particular PD for that. But if we can, as National Council, the PD officer can organize a PD for that only if the PD officer knows, it becomes aware that this is happening and that there is a need. So the deputy, the delegate and the deputy are like the link, formal link between a language pair, the language division, we call it, and the National Council. So those, and the same could happen with, certified specialist language, legal interpreters or certified specialists. They could have their own group. And that is what I want to give impetus to. In the languages in which I have participated, like for masterclass, like French, Spanish, and Portuguese, I'm sure that people will organize because we had good experiences. But why not unfolding this to all the languages represented in AUSIT? I mean, this has to be a grassroots initiative. I'm not going to go to the Turkish translators and interpreters and say, okay, let's have a masterclass. No, the desire to organize has to come from you.
No, you have to do it for us. You have to do it for us. Because it goes back to, we're not going to do this for you. You got to do it for yourself. Yes. Point taken. Point taken. We will do that. Turkish practitioners, let's get together.
Don't get fish to people. Teach people to fish.
Exactly. And, it's more fun that way anyway.
Precisely. And the Vice President for Communications, Vesna, I have difficulty with her surname. Vesna is preparing some videos for to teach people who cannot use the Learn book, like a mini tutorial. So I hope to be able to add that to my next newsletter, so members can make use of this resource, because the Learn book has free of charge materials that people should look into. For example, the latest version that Jackie Skews and the Ethics and Professional Practice Committee did on the document about translating legal and official documents. That is a very wonderful resource that every translator should know about and use and apply. So
there is a document as such on the AUSIT website as well. Are you talking about the same document, or is it an updated version? Is it the same document?
The document was updated in 2022. The previous version was 2014.
Yeah, I think the 2014 is still on the website, as in the AUSIT front end website. I don't know about LearnBook, but yeah. So
this another that the AUSIT website is another item for improvement. We can't do everything we have a list of things.
You'll get there. No, all good. Look, I know you're going to be also traveling a little bit this year. We know that you're going to be doing the road shows for the Law Society Roadshow we briefly talked about. And, you're going to pretty much every single state and territory and meeting the branch committees there. And while you're there, trying to meet as many members as possible by organising these PDs. We know you're coming to Melbourne in a few days' time. Tell me a little bit about your Australian tour. Where can people see you when? I know you might not have everything booked now, but just to give us an idea, do you know what the next destinations are?
So last year, before I became president of AUSIT, I started engaging with the Law Society of New South Wales about the issue of the recommended national standards. And last year, Sylvia Martinez and I delivered an online presentation to solicitors here in New South Wales, and it was very well received. And I thought, when I became president, I thought, okay, I'm going to do this as president of AUSIT. And I wrote to all the law societies. For those people who are not aware, that the legal profession here in Australia depends it is state-based or territory-based. So law societies are the organizations that group the solicitors, and the bar is the association that groups the barristers. So I wrote to the law societies of all the jurisdictions, including Northern Territory and ACT, and the states, and some of them have replied. So I have, I'm going to deliver a version of that seminar that I did with Sylvia to the Law Society of Tasmania on the 18th of March. So I'm going to be in Tasmania in March. And on the 18th of May in Adelaide for the Law Society of South Australia. And I hope that by then I will have heard from the other law societies. I'm also doing actually on Wednesday, I'm presenting to the Law Society of New South Wales. So
when you go and do the law societies, will you also be doing AUSIT membership or,
yes.
PDs, get to meet people while you're there? Yeah,
that's right. So, for example, for Tasmania, we already have an event free for all practitioners, members and non-members. So my presentation to the Law Society is going to be on Friday, the 17th of March, and on the 18th of March, Saturday, around 11 o'clock or something like that, it will be this presentation that will be basically the same that I'm going to be giving on Friday, or similar to the one I'm going to give on Friday in Melbourne.
Yeah, that's about the official documents, yeah?
No, it is about linguists and the law.
Okay.
Linguists, interpreters, translators, and the law. The law permeates everywhere, and I want to make to join some dots and make people think and reflect where some colleagues ended up in some of these court decisions. Make sure that your practice don't lead you to the situation where they found themselves, and that's why their names are on these court decisions. And it's not pretty.
Well, look forward to hearing about them.
That's why we have a code of conduct and an association. People, you don't realize when you are driving, you don't realize, you don't think about all the rules of driving, but you have them in your head. A practitioner who is a member of AUSIT may not have memorized or remember each part of the code of conduct, but because of engaging with other practitioners, discussing, engaging in general, they can navigate in a safe way. So that is that. I can't put it in more graphic terms. Just drive safely, be an AUSIT member.
I like that. That's I think a good note to finish up on today. Drive safely, be an AUSIT member. Angelo, look, I feel like I can speak to you for hours, but I think let's leave some more for future episodes, and I'm pretty sure that I'm going to talk to you again. So thank you very much for joining me today. It's been amazing chatting to you. You've got a lot of plans, a lot of big plans, and I hope that they realise we are there in support of you and AUSIT. Along the way, I'm sure there's going to be people or there's going to be barriers, but I'm sure you're going to be able to deal with them, and wishing you all the best and good luck with all these amazing aspirations and ambitions for AUSIT.
Thank you, Fatih. Remember that I'm just a face, but there are 99 other volunteers in AUSIT, including yourself, in the Victoria Branch Committee, and 99 people who give their time to make this organization a better organization, and there is room for more. So again, somebody feels inspired by my humble words today, president@ausit.org. Thank you so much for your time. See you on Friday.
Thank you so much, Angelo. See you on Friday. Look forward to seeing you in person. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening and watching today. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like it. And if you subscribe, you'll automatically get notifications of every time a new episode comes up, or there is a new webinar, or there's a new lecture. So thank you very much again. And I'd like to thank my guest, Angelo Berbotto, the AUSIT National President. And we'll look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you.